Hi, ladies. Welcome back to Divas, Diamonds, and Dollars podcast. This is where we talk about all those things that are impacting women today. Two sisters and sisters have come together to talk about all the situations that are impacting ladies, those things that are keeping you up all night, got you tossing and turning, those niggling little questions. But most of all, we want to help deliver on the promise of you. So we will be talking to all of you. And by that, I mean the whole you. So we want you to get comfortable, grab a cuppa, and at any time you can always reach out to us with comments if you have suggestions about other topics that you want to hear about. But in the meantime, we are going to talk about all those little meaty things. We're going to take on the world, I tell you, maybe. Or maybe we'll just have a nice conversation. So today we are going to talk about what to do as soon as this is over. It's been a wee bit of a challenge, but I'm going to let my co-host, Cecilia Benford, take it away.
Well, such a warm welcome and thank you. As soon as this is over, doesn't that sound like, what are we talking about? So, did somebody say rebirth when this is over? Regrowth, rejuvenation, renewal? How about reliance? Oh, yeah. What about resilience? As soon as this is over, has to do with a year ago, we were taken by a pandemic. And it was really a storm because very little had been said. Whoever thought about a pandemic? I mean, we haven't had this storm, we haven't had a pandemic like the one we just have survived for 100 years. The closest event to such a huge affair that affected everybody, our way of living, how things are even done today, was back September 2001. So, that was 20 years ago. You know what? When the world changes, obviously we change as well. There's no turning back to our previous way of life. That's why we have the title, As Soon as This Is Over. Every day, someone is asking, how do I adapt to this new world? So let's think about it. If you're asking that question, and as I thought about this topic, just like you, I have thought about this. But, let's think about some other events. Now, personally, I have not been through a fire, thankfully, uh, but some people have. What about a major storm? When there's a fire or there's a major storm like a tornado or hurricane or flood, those generally catch you by surprise. But a worldwide pandemic, it affected everybody. It was like, oh my gosh, we're all locked down. What happened? So, in so many instances, just like a fire or a hurricane, you have to figure out who to call, what are the necessary items that you need, like right now? Does somebody else need help? For work purposes, I mean, there was a mass trying to figure out definitions depending on how large your organization was. Were you essential employees? Okay, how do we, some of those people had to move around. How did, what were the decisions that had to be made as to if they were moving around because everyone's locked down, right? Well, no matter whether you are a single mother, a leader of people, working mother, you will typically survey the situation. Now, some people can, kind of go in panic mode, but some others are calm because you do have to figure out what's going on. You start thinking about the extent of the damage or what the impact is to your life. If you have clients, maybe you owned a business, or just maybe, hey, remember, ladies, the hair salons, the nail techs, the massage parlors. Yeah, we were kind of dying without those, right? But think about them. They had clients, um, But all of us had to figure out how to interact with how we get food, whether it's from a grocery store or if you're one of those people who don't cook, how do you get the fast food? I mean, there was a lot going on there. For work, who's going to go to work, if you had to work at home, hopefully you had a kind of an office set up, but a lot of people didn't. School, if you were a parent and you had your children to figure out how they were going to be educated, that was really quite the wow, what do we do? So, but we all know we don't think about this until something happens. And even when something does happen, we really probably still don't think about it. But I'm here to tell you that as humans, we actually do have a resilient stress booster that kicks in. Because as our brain starts trying to figure out some things, we really just don't stay in a state of panic. We don't just stay frozen. We do start figuring out what our next steps are. And so, having gone through a year, and some people were more mindful about what has occurred and, probably more intentional about some of the things they wanted to do. And so, with that, truly, I think we all realize that challenges will lead to new attitudes and opportunities. Yes, some people are still struggling today. Yes, some people may not have accomplished some of the things they wanted to because sometimes we just say, oh, I was locked down. But many of us had, I think, no matter what, we all had some state of impact, right? So new attitudes, new opportunities. So after getting over the brooding, because you have to brood because you wouldn't have been normal if you didn't. I mean, just not being able to do what you like to do or need to do or want to do, you're going to have some brooding, right? Many people started meditating. Um, that used to be thought of that was just for the other people or the people who could afford it. But, there have been lots of things that have been shared on the internet how useful meditating has been. Some people just reflected about their life that, well, where have I been? Where do I want to go? Um, and when you reflect about your life, you start looking at your strengths and certainly your needs because we all have needs. And then you just find out, what you're made of. So, really, the world really was more open than you might have said or thought about. Maybe your impacts weren't as great as somebody else. And then again, maybe your impacts were. But let's talk about how those impacts really did affect you and where we are as we're getting closer to that. What do we do when this is over? And so, Larissa, I know you've got a lot of thoughts about that.
I do have some thoughts to share. And I think that, we're having this conversation and it sort of sounds like it's built on the assumption that we're talking to action takers. I'm hoping, maybe that's who we're talking to. I understand that not everyone is really going to grasp the situation by the horns, if you will, and run with it. I've often said, or I've said it way too many times, but I feel like it's true that, last year was a year I grew up kicking and screaming, but I did grow up. I just hadn't really put any effort into it in the past, but apparently it was time.
Mm.
And I'm just definitely more mindful, maybe introspective, and I'm just going to point out the obvious that obviously the way we responded in some way was built on our internal strengths and how we grew up and what our experience had been up until that point. If we were already in a leadership take charge position, very definitely we were able to maneuver through the situation and come out better off on the other end, if you will. And for folks who are not necessarily in that role, it may have been a bit of a challenge, but whether you are a strong person in the beginning or forced to become a strong person just because, humans do have a survival instinct. And so we're definitely going to do all we can to make it through. And it's been a challenge, but because we are entering to this new world order, as I like to call it, we're going to take those lessons and we're going to be better people for it. So I'm going to say that, we'll talk about the most basic or the most critical because I still firmly believe that humans are social beings. We need other people. And, you know, our interactions with others, that's, well, we just had to have new ways because we can't do without it. So we had to, certainly take advantage of technology, get creative about moving from your office environment to your, prepping for your next video encounter because there are plenty of those. And even though we're excited to see people face to face, the video's not going away. So I know we've heard a lot about Zoom fatigue, and I'm sure that's a real thing. But if that's, it won't be all we have now. The literally the sun is shining today, so
Mhm.
the doors are definitely going to be open, and we will be in front of people again. But there will still be opportunities that we will want and or need to be in front of video. So still, I'm going to say just keep up with those skills that you learned because you will continue to use them because technology is going to be a big part of our life. And some of those connections that we made are only online. They are not someone that we can just, run over and have coffee with. So learn to love it. It's here to stay. Any more that you want to say before I keep, I could talk a year about interactions with others, but any thoughts on that besides, the video and the face getting in front of people?
Well, I one thing I will say about it because it's kind of one of my, oh my gosh, IT and some of our companies where I worked at the time, it they weren't ready for this.
Mm,
And so trying to manage the frustration that I had as well as managing other people's frustration. So as a leader, I couldn't really complain about it very much because you've got to show that positive attitude to other people who are struggling. So that was one of my takeaways. And then, but I was sort of proud about the things that I did learn in the end. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a virtual master. So I think that was one of the good things that came out of that useful learning about technology.
well, I heard the words virtual master. I may have to pick on you about that one, but I'm going to go on and talk about one thing for sure that this has given us is a renewed sense of self.
Mhm.
And I think that increases self confidence. You may have felt alone, you may have actually been alone, during these solitary or shelter in place times. But, that period of introspection kind of helps you lead to a period of rejuvenation, if you will, or renewal. Because, I mean, I'm so guilty. I just got caught up in the day to day. And so I did not take the time to reflect and go inward because it's mighty quiet in there. So,
Mhm.
anyway, I do think that having a renewed sense of self is a definitely confidence booster and it's definitely led me to look at the different ways to recreate myself, if you will. You know what? That is really what I think life is about. It is a
Yes.
series of recreations. You cannot just be that little malleable blob, if you will, that you were born, the way you were born, right? You are going to continue to grow and to learn and become. And we just had a little growing and becoming on steroids. That's really what it is. So I want to say embrace that because that was a positive. It may have been painful at times, but not to be graphic, but coming through the birth canal, whether you're 40 or minutes old, it is a process. So just embrace it. And similar to that is that newfound self-reliance. I mean, even though there were stated, start and or end dates, the situation was ever fluid because it's like, yeah, we're good. No, not yet. No, but I'm sure that no, not yet. So that whole It's like when you're trying to turn the key on the ignition, it's like,
Mhm. Very
you
good
know,
analogy. Yes.
never mind my sound effects, pardon me, but it just popped in my head. But that was really what it was like.
Yes.
And so, because the situation was so fluid, there was really, I'm calling it a loss of self control and personal freedoms
Mhm.
because we're very independent people. We're used to doing what we want when we want to do it. And now there was somebody saying, no, not today. No, you can't.
Right.
That's not something that we enjoyed. So, again, you deal with what is in front of you. You can't always respond based on what you wish, right?
Mhm.
So, you have to kind of look at the things that you could actually control. And so I really, said in the beginning, when you look back at the things that you accomplished within the restrictions that were imposed upon us, I think that you will again feel a sense of rebirth and renewal and know that you got this. And so that self-reliance again it's a huge win.
Mhm.
So go ahead and pat yourself a little bit.
I agree. Yeah, can I just add one comment or footstone? One thing you said, which I found myself saying many times and really have just taken it on, manage what you can control. Most of us, a lot of times people just going headlong doing what they do. And it wasn't until they were really locked down, had something taken from them, at least they feel that way. And I think in some ways that's the case. All of a sudden it was, what? I really can't do that? Well, why can't I do that? Well, this was a situation there really wasn't any answer for that except the obvious one. So it's really a footstone for going forward, manage what you can control. I mean, really take a look at it, but don't get upset about it. Don't get anxious about it. Don't waste a lot of mental calories on what you cannot control. So I just wanted to really footstone that because I think there are a lot of people that really had to. I know I had to talk to some people about this, and their anxiety level was really up. And I'm just saying, you don't need to go there.
That loss of not self-control, the what is it? Well, lack of personal freedoms. I mean, it's been in the news, like it's still in the news
Mhm.
because, people behaving badly. It just did not take well to someone else telling them what they could do. And it is such a head scratcher as to why people don't respond to quote unquote the greater good.
Mhm.
Why can't you be uncomfortable for a few minutes in time, if you will,
Right.
so that we can get through this? And so, as you say, at some point you have to stop beating your head against the wall.
Mhm.
And so the things that were, not even taken from you necessarily, just kind of put on pause. And
Right.
pause is not always a bad thing. Pause can
Right.
be a good thing.
Absolutely.
And even if it was someone else pushing the pause button,
Mm.
fine. If I can't do these other 8 things, there's probably 12 other things that I can do. And it's really learning how to look at the yes things versus the no things. Because the yes things are probably much more, I don't know, positive, impactful, restorative, if you will. And, a lot of people actually needed to slow down.
Mhm.
And having a forced pause on your life, if you will, if we weren't forced to do it, some people probably would have still been going 100 miles an hour, and that's not what we were designed for. You do. That's why we go to bed at night or wee hours of the morning, as it may be. Wink, wink.
Right.
Um, because we do need to restore, reboot, and recharge.
Mhm.
So I'm again saying that even though it felt like we were being restrained, just take some of the, as we, because, and you know, as we're recording this, as I said, the world is going to open again. And now I'm like, wait, I'm not ready. So, I mean, I'm eager to see people because, you know, it's been a long time. I might need a hug, but I still have my 12 things. I would have graduated to probably about 18 or 20, but I mean, I still have my things. And so now it's like, I got to hurry up and get them finished. So anyway, it's a mixed bag, right? I'm just hoping that you realize that a pause is not always a bad thing. A pause is that time where you're oh, what's it called? Uh, I don't know the scientific term, but you're putting new grooves into your brain because your brain matter is going to expand because it's growing because you've had to learn new things. And these new things, these new skills, this new self-reliance or greater self-reliance. If you were an independent thinker anyway, you were doing fine. And now you have more of what you already had. That's also a positive. So anyway, it's not bad. So being resilient, saying when this is could find you saying when this is over. And if you say when this is over, that's like flipping a switch. So maybe a mental switch. So that could shortchange you. So really think about when this is over. And I'm really curious because once we start getting back into the swing of things, there will still be some differences. I went to a going away party last Friday at with some coworkers who was leaving the state, and we were outside, and there was just a few of us, and the people at the table next to me did not have on a mask, and the people I was sitting with did not have on a mask. I did not take my mask off. I'm not ready. So there are some things that are going to be with us for a while. So yes, go out and meet and greet and say hi and keep your new skills that you've learned and maybe keep some of your precautions that you've also had just as we, you know, we learn what's next. So be optimistic, be positive because there is no turning back to yesterday. Yesterday is gone. We have today. Tomorrow is not promised. So make the most of today and be mindful that there will still be some adjustments. There will always be people behaving badly. You don't have to be one of them. You remember that you came through this with flying colors. And if you need some additional support in that, of course, please, again, feel free to reach out to us. But being resilient, be excited because it is going to be a little bit different. But with our superpowers, right, we're going to come through this. So even consider maybe having a little hope and excitement about, you know, the new and improved. I want to think it's improved, right? So let's have some hope that there could be some things that we're looking forward to on the other side of tomorrow. You know, you have the choice. Eh, You've you always, you know, things happen because that is how the world works. Things happen, but where our choice comes is how we respond to the things that happen. You know, ideally, we want to decide to emerge better, stronger, more successful than others. We're thrivers, we're survivors. We are powerful and we are strong, and that is women's superpower. So I hope that you will look with bright eyes on your opportunities that have been presented. Continue to embrace and build upon the skills that you've learned. Know that you have your inner reserves that you can draw on. So it's a cornucopia, if you will, of good times ahead. Things will happen, but remember the choices that you have to draw within or your community, right? We're here to support you. So I think we have some good things going for us. I may have been overboard just a wee pinch. To see, do you want to add to that? Because I think we have, well, I mean, it's an ever expanding topic, but just making sure that we leave our listeners with the tools. Any other tools or things that you want to I can't even say it. Foot stomp. That's not a California saying. I said foot stomp. You want to foot stomp something?
That's
Anyway,
good.
Sorry.
So, so Ohio, you know, Midwest, they people talk about Midwest. California's, the it place. Midwest,
Anyway,
here we are. But um, I do want to say that for women, it does take a lot of because women do so much, and we really can't begin to touch everything that women had to do or have to do or will do, which is why I said early on that we do start kind of taking control, but where that leaves you, is the mystery. And a lot of times, I mean, that's why we have this title. As soon as this is over, you just kept hearing people say, "Oh, I can't wait, I can't wait." And yet you look at these super women, and I'm saying they've already conquered. They're already conquerors. They're already, because of what they've achieved, what they've done. And so, what I try to help people look at is their positives, what they have achieved. And so, I heard you say like what they've created, what they've learned. That is so important. So, ladies, you got to look at what did I do? Because you did something. You did something that you haven't done before. For me, and I've said this perhaps in some at some other point, but I don't like the cold. But I decided, okay, I'm not going to stay in the house all the time. If I can't go somewhere, but I can go outside. And so I found ways to bundle up and go outside. And that led me to do some exploring. I wouldn't have been walking around in the parks and hiking. We have a lot of bike trails and walking paths and parks that I mean, the state really takes a lot of care and promotion into, and that was one of the things that came out of what happened here. So going forward, I've learned where a lot of places are that I did not know. Going forward, people will continue to do that. So, you may have taken a road trip. Um, for that, I do think that you have to think about, again, what can you do to help your psyche, because it's really about emotional health. We do talk about our physical well-being and mental, but emotional health, mental well-being. So it is do whatever it takes, because I think the other thing Larissa said was, we're not going back to the old way. There are some things that will be different. And with that in mind, let's not focus on what we didn't have, what we missed. Let's focus on this is how we do things. Okay, you may never have had somebody else pick your groceries for you. I didn't, but now I do. Not always, because I've also learned when somebody else is picking my groceries, there are some things I don't want them picking. And so we've learned some things, but did that save you time? So sometimes I think we just need to not keep saying the limiting statement, and I think that's what you called it, Louisa, is that it's not so much about when this is over, is this what are you going to keep doing? Because that's what we do. That's how we become the example for others who need maybe more help, or our children or our families. But exciting times ahead are still going to be there for us. So I think that's about all I would offer is, just a little encouragement, because sometimes we need a little encouragement when we're overwhelmed and just can't see. Okay, here's an old one. Can't see the trees for the forest, forest for the trees, whatever that is. I don't know. But anyway, all right.
so thank you, Cecilia. And that was actually, I think, the one thing that we didn't say to this new world order is, you have your bucket list. Some people have a bucket list is like, before I die. Well, not to get moribund about it, but don't your bucket list is fine. But what I want to suggest is that you look at creating you know, an excitement list, things that you're looking forward to doing. So we have some things that we can build on because we've been doing some growing, but I am totally contemplating a road trip real quick. Well,
Right.
soon. I don't know about quick.
Yes.
But I'm going to get out and do some exploring. That's where I want to go. I wanted to remind you to look at where, um, traveling to new vistas. I hope that your year of growth has inspired you to keep growing and to keep looking forward at what's next. And that as soon as this is over, or what's next, it could have been, we could have used either one of those titles.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping you'll take a what's next approach, because there's so much life has to offer. And if you approach it with open arms and open eyes, good things will surely come. So, with that, we're going to close out this little podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation, found some pearls of wisdom. And again, do please drop us a line anytime you want, maybe again, to suggest some topics. Certainly happy to hear your thoughts on that. And we invite you to come back next Sunday. Each Sunday at 4 o'clock is when we post. And at some point, we certainly like to go live. So we will work on that from this end. But thanks again for listening. And we will see you next Sunday. So today's podcast was brought to you by Pink Passport Society, a membership community for lady moguls and women on the move, and leadership, coaching, connections, and mentoring with Cecilia Benford. Thanks so much, and we will see you next time. Cheers.